Hey, shalom, 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 and welcome back, everybody. How y'all doing? To the next session of reading with Shalom, Shalom. So, yeah, I was supposed to do this earlier, but we're here now. It's a late night one. We're gonna go ahead and get in section 1 of chapter 2. Chapter 2 of On the Real Side by Mel Watkins. So, chapter 2, section 1 has a couple of sections in it. Section 1 is not that long. It's only a couple of pages, but it's just to get this going. After it took me so long, I was going to read longer than this, but I hate updating my stuff, and I was holding off for so long to update, and it finally just did it on its own, or I guess I pressed for it to do it later, and once I cut my shit on, it took forever. So I've been sitting here for like the last damn 45 minutes waiting for the update to finish. But hey, we're here now. So chapter 2 is called The Minstrelsy. The die is cast. Look at that. It says Jim Crow at the bottom. But it's a guy, man, in one of his videos. He plays in that show ATL, and he played in the movie Solo, the black guy. I can't think of his name. And it was in one of his videos, he was doing a dance or a stance similar to this. If anybody can remember who he is, please go ahead and throw it in the comments. I can't remember his name. But besides all that, let's jump into it. Since I've kept y'all waiting, and y'all up here late at night with me. So this is only 3 pages. 3 pages for section 1. Section 4 will be definitely read by itself. Excuse me. Yeah, section 4 will be definitely read by itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. Yeah, it'll be 3 sections. We're going to separate it into 3 sections. Section 1, section 2, section 3, which it is already located in the book in those sections. I'm going to just go ahead and read them like that. Section 1 will be the shortest section. Everything else that we read, in the coming days will be about hour long readings to finish the section. So we shall see. We shall see. But until then, until we get to the next sections, let's jump into section 1. Let's knock section 1 out tonight, and we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing 1 page at a time, 1 section at a time, 1 day at a time, until we finish this monster of a book. So if you're in here with me, come on in here with me and listen up. Let's see what we can learn and grow from On the Real Side, the history of African American comedy from slavery to Chris Rock by Mel Gibson. I mean, not Mel Gibson. Mel Watkins. I'm sorry, Mel Watkins. I don't know why Mel Gibson jumped in my mind. Anyway, The Minstrelsy. The die is cast. The die is cast. Come listen, all you gals and boys. It's just from Tuckahoe. I'm going to sing a little song. My name's Jim Crow. We'll about and turn about and do this jig. Everybody time I will about and jump Jim Crow. Thomas Dartmouth Rice. It don't make sense, some of that stuff. A nigga come Arkansas, the biggest fool I ever saw. At morning, when this nigga rose, he put his mittens on his toes. He went to shell corn in the shed. He shelled the shins all bare instead. He went to feed the horse at the barn. He put himself in the trough for the corn. Ethiopian serenaders. Stevens fosters pastoralism of old folks at home and masses in the cold ground, though seemingly innocent, expressed a subconscious desire to see blacks way down upon the Swanee River and not in Pittsburgh. Burnt Austendorf. The distinctive character of authentic African American humor, sometimes ironic, evasive, and oblique, sometimes playful and purely entertaining, and sometimes aggressively militant, was well established by the early 19th century. Although this humor was most often conspicuously quiescent, confined to isolated black gatherings, and concealed by the outer face of passivity and compliance. Occasionally, it erupted in pointed satire, directing barbs at the pretentiousness of whites or other blacks, or at the injustices and dehumanization of bondage. But even as this primitive or private humor developed among blacks, mainstream America was about to introduce a form of entertainment that would codify the public image of blacks as a prototypical fool or Sambo. By the 1840s, a systemized form of blackface stage entertainment, minstrelsy, would emerge as the rage of American popular culture, the first concerted appropriation and commercial exploitation of a black expressive form. African American humor, along with elements of song and dance, was lifted from its original context, transformed and parodied, then spotlighted for the entertainment and amusement of non-black audiences. The phenomenon, in a less satiric and concisely malicious form, would be repeated over the years. Paul Whiteman would be promoted as the king of jazz, Benny Goodman as the king of swing, Elvis Presley as the king of rock, and a raft of non-blacks would achieve popular success by burlesquing supposed Negro performance and lifestyles. But none of these subsequent mimetic excursions into black cultural life would be a methodically demeaning or as lastingly damaging as minstrelsy. Y'all gonna have to excuse me. We're gonna try to get it right. Theoretical impersonation of blacks, of course, did not begin with minstrelsy. Blacks, like women, were customarily represented by white males in European stage performances long before the mid-19th century. Shakespeare's Othello, written in 1604, was regularly performed with white actors playing the lead thereafter. A less accomplished drama, Thomas Souther's Oroonoco in 1696, the tale of an African prince captured by whites, was popularly received on the British stage until the mid-1700s, and later that century in America. These serious, sympathetic stage portrayals of blacks, however, were rare. My reading is terrible so far tonight. Oh, man. So excuse me. but we're going to keep pushing. In America, blackness was associated with humor almost from the outset. An early example, although in some important ways an exception, is Andrew Barton's ballad opera The Disappointment or Force of Credulity in 1767, which was the first native work to present a black character, as well as the first ballad opera published by an American in America. Although the black character Raccoon speaks in dialect and is a comic figure, he is in stark contrast to the buffoonish image of blacks that emerged on the popular stage in later years. Raccoon, in what was a scandalously revolutionary act for the time, was portrayed as a wealthy, free black man with a white mistress. Not surprisingly, The Disappointment was not a popular success. Labeled unfit for the stage, it was quickly withdrawn. Black characters continued to appear sporadically on the American stage as minor comic figures or sometimes as the tragic noble savage throughout the 18th century. But it was not until the early 1800s that they began to emerge as principal figures in America's comic lexicon. Other regional and ethnic types had already become comic staples, having an enduring appeal in America's culture of the common man. In the 1820s, blackface caricatures began supplanting white rural comic types. And although only fragmentary, often contradictory, documentations exist about the careers of the pioneer blackface entertainers. It is evident that by this time, America was developing a growing interest in blackface mimicry. 1831 noted that in the early 20s, the Southern plantation Negro was drawn on the stage in Cincinnati by young Edwin Forrest. Forrest, who was to become the leading American actor of the period, made himself up as a black man and strolled through the streets mingling with. His impersonation was so authentic, legend has it, that an old black woman mistook him for a friend, and he persuaded her to join him in a performance that evening. Around the same time, in 1822 to 1823, Charles James Matthews, the acclaimed English actor, mimic, and comedian, was making the first of two tours of the United States. During these visits, he methodically collected impressions of distinctly American types. Matthews considered the paterfamilias, paterfamilias, paterfamilias of the Yankee Theater and the progenitor of all Native American dialect comedy by some experts, including Negroes, among his expressions, and in his one-man stage review, A Trip to America introduced the version of the now familiar song Possum Up a Gum Tree. Matthew insisted that it was an authentic copy of the original Negro melody and that his impersonation of blacks was based on fact. Most historians and musicologists now reject Matthew's assertions, as well as Rourke's avowal that Forrest's blackface character was a faithful drawing of the Negro. But there is little doubt that the claims of Forrest and Matthews and their stature as entertainers whetted the public appetite for blackface mimicry in both Europe and the United States. It also prompted others to explore the possibilities of black impersonation. Around 1828, for example, George Washington Dixon introduced Coal Black Rose, a comic song about a Negro woman and her rival lovers, Sambo and Koofy, to American audiences. The song ridiculed the lovers' vows of affection and ended with a burlesque confrontation in which love turns to hate. With Dixon's performances of this and other minstrel songs at circuses and variety shows in New York, his popularity increased significantly. Some maintain that he was the first white entertainer to establish a broad reputation as a blackface performer. George Nicholas, another circus clown, began doing blackface impersonations in the 1820s and claims that to have written Zip Coon, now popular known as Turkey in the Straw. Although Dixon and another blackface performer, Bob Farrell, known as Zip Coon, also claimed authorship of the song. Some show business historians even contend that Nichols originally introduced Jim Crow, a tune that, when brought to the stage by another performer, almost single-handedly catapulted blackface acts into national prominence. In 1828, or thereabouts, Thomas D. Rice, a minor actor in the dramatic play The Rifle, reportedly saw a crippled and deformed black hostler and stable groom singing and performing a striking but peculiar dance as he went about his work. The actor, recognizing the potential appeal of the song, wheel about and turn about and do just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim Crow. And the black man's twisted antic movements, memorized the lyrics, and copied the dance. The actual year and place of this legendary interaction are still disputed by historians, leading some to question whether it was an actual occurrence or the product of Rice's imagination and knack for self-promotion. Expanding the verses, and so the story goes, even buying the old man's clothes to assure authenticity, Rice began presenting the impersonation between acts of the rifle. Rice's performances became an immediate sensation, and he soon incorporated additional Negro characters, songs, and dances. Perhaps the most famous was his shadow dance, in which he appeared with a gunny sack slung across his shoulder. After putting the sack down and beginning the song, Me and My Shadow and Dance, a child actor in blackface would crawl from the sack and began emulating his every move. In the mid 20th century, Ted Lewis would revive this routine and, using a grown man instead of a child imitator, make it a central part of his act. Rice also began combining his Jim Crow impersonation with the established comic figure of the time when he appeared in the long blue coat and striped pants traditionally associated with the popular Yankee stage character. Whatever the source of his material, Rice's intuition about what would appeal to 19th century white audiences was correct. Subsequently, billed as Jim Crow Rice, his popularity continued to grow, and within a decade, he had become one of America's best-known comedians. By the 1830s, black-faced white performers were one of the most popular attractions of the American stage. Rice, as well as such performers as Nicholas, Farrell, Dixon, Ben Cotton, and J.W. Sweeney, calling themselves Ethiopian delineators, toured the country, performing suddenly authentic Negro songs and dances in traveling shows, circuses, and between acts and variety theaters. Theater goers during the decades of the 1820s, 1830s, and 1840s were usually presented with a hodgepodge of entertainment. A typical evening included not only a full-length play, but an assortment of variety acts, dances, popular songs, blackface acts, jugglers, acrobats, trained animals, and novelties. It really sounds like a circus. The public demand for a common man's culture had begun to transform American entertainment, and showmen such as P.T. Barnum responded by offering variety shows designed to satisfy that demand. Extent, this consciously lowbrow entertainment emphasized the spectacular and bizarre. Barnum's American Museum in New York City, for instance, offered midgets, fat men, bearded ladies, and trained fleas in addition to plays, variety acts, and educational displays. Given the public appetite for the bizarre and unusual, it is not surprising that blackface performers soon became major attractions. As Constance Rourke pointed out, to the primitive comic sense, to be black was to be funny, and many minstrels made the most of this simple circumstance. For Northerners in particular, blacks were still seen as curiosities. Thomas Rice and many of the other blackface precursors of minstrelsy were aware that they presented the perfect foil for burlesque and exaggeration. Blackface archetypes, fundamentally issued from the imagination of Northern whites, writes the historian Ronald L. Davis. Although they may have been influenced by slave performances and a few early black entertainers, most of the first burnt court troopers were either immigrants or showmen from the East and Middle West, who were not familiar with plantation slavery. What they brought to their blackface portrayals was barely a germ of reality indirectly received, but affably coated with the romantic attitudes and general misconceptions about the American black. Although incidentals of the caricature may have been drawn from direct experience, the essence was based on hearsay and popular lore and projected in overstated exotic terms. Rice, for instance, if he is to be believed, was copying the movements of a cripple, a far cry from the representative example of the Negro dance. And while it is clear that black music provided the inspiration for many of the songs of the earlier blackface impersonators, most of the songs, including Jim Crow, Possum Up a Gum Tree, and Long Tail Blue, the songs that Rice often performed when donning his Yankee attire, have been shown to be of European origin, although they were performed in a manner intended to mimic black speech and style. In addition, the sentiments typically expressed as the lyrics from going out of the mountain, at the beginning of this chapter indicate that most early minstrel songs were the creation of whites set on ridiculing blacks rather than of blacks themselves. On the other hand, the raucous, sensational, and often profane atmosphere of popular American entertainment during this period makes it clear why blackface mimicry was so appealing. Whether enslaved or free, blacks were the outcasts of American society. To many, they were no more than freaks like P.T. Barnum's geeks and bearded ladies. And at a time when the nation was engaged in heated debate about slavery, what better way both to satisfy the public's curiosity about blacks and to influence the overall estimate of the country's racial pariahs than to spotlight them as burlesque figures? By focusing on and exaggerating the supposed earthy peculiarities of blacks, blackface mimics provided the simple, folksy entertainment white audiences demanded and assured them that, indeed, they were superior to their enslaved brethren. The formula proved immensely successful, but the late 1830s, through refinement and more determined exploitation of the subject, blackface characterization had virtually eliminated all other ethnic and regional types. Jim Crow, the unkempt, ignorant plantation slave, displaced the black woods or frontier caricature, the zip coon or Jim Dandy, the bombastic, dandified city slicker, replaced the Yankee character as America's central comic figure. And that was section 1. That was section 1 of chapter 2, minstrelsy. Chapter 1 was slavery. Chapter 2 is minstrelsy. The die is cast. Man, I stumbled over a lot of shit. But that's fine. We'll come back later on today, since it's Tuesday. We'll come back later on, in the day after I finish the homeschooling. We'll see. After I finish homeschooling, come back and read section 3. Section 2. Section 2 of chapter 2, the minstrelsy. And hopefully tomorrow I read much better. I'm stumbling on my words now. But hopefully tomorrow I read much better than I have tonight. I'm kind of upset because I usually read very well late at night. But I guess maybe because I'm tired. But we'll keep pushing. Like I said, one section at a time, one page at a time, one day at a time until we finish the whole book on the real side by Mel Watkins. Mel Watkins. So, and we're moving along, man. We're doing good. I was looking at this earlier, man. I was like, ooh, it's a big chunk. It's a big chunk out of that. Well, we got a lot more to go, man. We got a lot more to go. So I was just trying to get this in right quick, because I damn sure don't want it to be 3 weeks before we read another page of this book. So I got to stick at it. We got to keep pushing. Because I really want to get it out the way, so that way I could read the medical apartheid as well, and put another mark on my on my bookmark. A bookmark. It's really taking multiple meanings. I'll be at 21 for the year. But not for the year. I don't think it'll be for the year. I don't know if it's the year, or I'll have to go back and see when I started reading. But 21 for sure in total so far. It'll be 21 once I finish this. And oh boy, what a book it's turning out to be. A lot of history. Or what, a lot of names, a lot of big words, man. But that only helps to build the vocabulary. Even with stumbling, for whoever is there, who may be out there trying to work on their reading skills, man. Hey, even though they're big words, keep pushing through them, because it can build up your mental vocabulary Rolodex, which would be good for Scrabble. Other things. It can help boost your communication, so that way, if you're a person that, so say cuss or curse a lot, there'll be other words that you can use. It might not hit as hard as the curse words, but it is still a way to expand your vocabulary. Learn how to use these words in sentences, learn how to spell them. Hey, plenty uses. But till the next time, this has been Reading with SHILO. Man, SHILO out. I hope y'all have a nice night, morning, evening, day, whenever you get a hold of this one. And let's keep pushing, man. Like, comment, subscribe, leave me a message. Let me know what's good with you, how you feeling. Shalom, everybody. Till next time. Shalom.